when the flaming arrows are flying at them, they would hit that and put the flames out. If you're struck, just imagine you are a soldier going into battle. The arrow is bad enough, so it's going to hit you in the arm. But if it's on fire, now your sleeve is burning. It burns through the rest of your clothing. So now you've caught on fire. Maybe you catch the guy on your left and right on fire. It's not a pretty picture. And now you're hurting. I mean, you've already been, the projectile's already penetrated. Now you're hurting from the flames. It just adds to the whole thing. This puts out the flames as they're coming. So it benefits you in a number of ways. It allows also for an offensive move. So in case the army is moving forward or to the left or to the right, they can move forward with the sword in one hand, the shield in the other, and it's mobile. It's not like a fort or a fixed position. Sometimes in an army they defend a fixed position, but that's not mobile. This thing can move. So you can move against the enemy, which is not our topic for today, but that's coming up. You move forward, and then you're able to strike a blow. But you can't do that yet, but you got to have the shield to be able to protect yourself from the projectiles that are coming your way. So let's look at Ephesians 6:13 through 16, God's body armor. Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will still be standing firm. Stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth and the body armor of God's righteousness. For shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news so that you will be fully prepared. In addition to all of these, hold up the shield of faith to stop the fiery arrows of the devil. Hold up the shield of faith to stop the fiery arrows of the devil. So the arrows are coming. They're going to come hard and fast. They're going to come from different angles. And they're coming for you. So it helps to know what kind of arrows might come your way. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at a number of different arrows, fiery arrows that the enemy will send your way. These aren't all the arrows. This will just open the door, but it will give you an idea. And these aren't always, if something happens to you, in something that I've mentioned, doesn't mean that that's Satan who has done it. It just means these are tactics that he uses. These are strategies that are in his toolbox that he wants to use against you. And he may pull out any one of these or a bunch of these at any given time in order to discourage you, to distract you, to somehow destroy you. He wants to divide you from God. He wants to diminish your faith. He wants to degrade your life, and he is busy about that purpose. So whatever he can do to separate you from your faith, that's the idea. And this is called the shield of faith. We want to stand firm in our faith. So the enemy's coming along to make sure that he can destroy that faith, and these are the things that he uses, or some of the things that he uses to do that. So you can write these down. That could take a while. Or you could download it, because some tech people back there are going to make sure these things are available and you can get them that way. So, because they're going to be, that could also be a trick of the devil. I don't know, I was trying to come back on number, I don't know, and then you've just lost whatever was going on. So if you want, just download it later. But you can catch up with some notes to get some ideas, or just put the heading and then it'll give you a clue as to where that part goes. Okay, let's start here. Physical, because, we tend to go there really quick. Physical fiery arrows of the devil. Here are the physical elements that can come our way in these fiery arrows. Attacks. Attacks. We can actually be physically attacked for our faith because we stand for Jesus, because we stand for what's right, because we stand for justice, any of those things, stand for truth, and we can be physically attacked. It happened to Paul, it happened to Jesus, it can happen to us. So that's a physical thing. And we can probably make sense of that one. You go, yeah, that's a spiritual, that's like a New Testament thing. Okay, got it. Haven't had that happen, so it's probably not something I'm going to be worried about a whole lot. Okay, what about accidents? So you slip off the ladder, you get hit by a semi, the wheels fall off your car, so there's an accident. How do you respond in that moment? Here's something that has come your way, and if the enemy has timed this just right, remember we just read it, in the time of evil, so the evil one is coming your direction. He wants to take you out. He wants to separate you from your faith. So some accident comes along. The car is damaged. Now you have to report to the insurance company. You got to pay your deductible. Maybe you have to go to the hospital for a little bit. I mean, all the things that go into an accident. And then in your mind, God, where were you? Why did you let that happen to me? Let it happen to that guy, but why did it happen to me? Now, what's Satan trying to do? Degrade your life, divide you from faith, so you don't trust God. So all he has to do is throw an accident into the mix. How many people have just had a simple accident and that's it? A physical accident, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, where is God? Wow, that's just... So we've been through attacks, and we're writing that one off because that only happens to the people in Nigeria and back in the first century. So that's not me. Accidents, that could be me. What about abuse? Physical abuse. It can come in a variety of ways. It can come for kids. It can come in marriages. It can come at work. It can come, the rioting in the streets. There's abuse. What if you physically get abused? Where's God? Where's trusting God when you've been abused? What does the enemy bring along with that arrow when he penetrates and he gets to us? And we go, I can't trust him because he was supposed to keep me from everything. That's my expectation. Where did we get that? Did God say that? Or has that been set up by someone else? So now in our expectation, we have a whole different idea, and the arrows are coming. Could be an attack, could be an accident, could be abuse, could be appearance. All of us have been given an appearance of some sort by God Almighty, and we come. Some people are formed in such a way that they're models and they walk runways and put on clothes and they get filmed. Others are deformed. Some have no arms or legs. So obviously God has failed them. The only ones he's blessed are the ones who get to walk the model ramp. Now you don't believe that on the surface. But all I have to do is pull that curtain back a little bit. And let me just ask you, what do you think of your body? Have you ever had body shaming because you just didn't feel good about who you were? Or at some moment in your life you didn't feel good about who you were? All of a sudden appearance is a thing. And Satan is firing arrows at your physical being and saying, really? Is that what God gave you? You're going to trust that guy because he's the one who did this to you. And how many of us have gone, you're right. Lucifer, you are so right. I have been ripped off by the living God, and suddenly faith begins to wane. See the arrow? Illness. That can be a long-term, end-of-life illness. It can be a short-term, why did I get the flu, COVID-19, some illness. But all it has to do is come along and rock your world for a little bit, and you go, oh my gosh, this illness is so horrible. God, you should protect me. Where were you? And what has the enemy done? And we live in a broken world. These things are just going to happen. Accidents are going to happen. Attacks, abuse is going to happen. Illnesses are going to happen. It's just part of the broken world. That's one thing. It's just the order of things. This is specifically designed by Satan as a strategy to tear you down and to separate you from your God. So he wants to attack your faith. So if you just run back through your mind and your history and you go, okay, that happened, there was an accident here, there was an illness here, and during that time I really wondered where God was. You got to work through that. So, okay, so who just got a flaming arrow into you? Because he's just gotten through. He's penetrated. Hunger. You think I'm making all this up. This is actually biblical, and we just don't have time for references. So here you go. Jesus did this with Matthew 4. I'll give you that reference. So he's hungry, 40 days in. The devil comes to him and says, hey, you're the Son of God. Just turn the rock into a loaf of bread. Solve the problem. He didn't do it. He didn't go with Satan's arrow. He didn't buy what Satan was selling. But what does it do for us in those moments when we're hungry? And it can be hunger for food. It can be hunger for a certain kind of food. It can be hunger, a desire for something that we just, alcohol, or if we're addicted, or whatever it is that we're desiring so much that now it overwhelms, becomes most important. Ever had anybody tell you that because they're hungry, they get up in the morning, and if they don't eat at a certain time, they become hangry? So that's their justification to be mean, to be unkind, to use harsh words and language. Obviously, that should be an excuse, right? We should just be off the hook. And we can say whatever we want to anybody else because I'm hungry. Who just got an arrow through? Because that abuse of other people may cause that person to lose faith. That may cause the whole household to disrupt because somebody decided that the most important thing is they're hungry and they have their needs, and those needs need to be satisfied. Like now, in Jesus' case, didn't get angry, didn't bite anybody's head off, and he didn't turn the stones into bread. He didn't listen to the devil. He didn't go his way. That's why we listen to Jesus. There's weakness. When we have a weakness physically, and we go, well, that's my excuse. And because I have this weakness, I just have to be let off the hook. And, I just can't do those things that God would have me do because, I have a weakness. And so we use the weakness or allow the weakness to divide us again, separate us from our God, from faith, and from trusting him, and the arrows are penetrating. We can use weakness, but strength is also one. If you remember the strongest person in the Bible, Samson, he was just such a man of faith. Remember that? He trusted God. He did what God told him to do. No, it's the opposite. He had the most strength, and he did the opposite. Because when you're strong, you're healthy, you can lift a building, you don't have to listen to God. That's how that works. What if you're strong? What if you physically are healthy day after day? You really can't have compassion for those who don't have that. So what has Satan done? He's rewarded you by shooting an arrow of strength to give you an extra ability to do things that other people can't do. And all of a sudden, arrogance, pride, a whole different way of living emerges out of that, bullying other people to get things done. It just comes with strength. Weakness can be used as an excuse. Strength can be used as well. All of it coming from Satan. And not all of these, again, are things that don't normally occur. They do. But Satan can target it as an arrow, flaming arrow, to fire at the people of God so that he can destroy their relationship with God and to tear them down. They no longer will stand firm because I had an illness. I'm weak. I had an accident. I'm hungry. So now I don't have to act in faith any longer. I don't have to be loving or kind. I have an excuse. Physical one. That's physical fiery arrows of the devil, or some. Financial fiery arrows of the devil. Financial ones. If there is an economic decline. So if you're used to an economy making a certain amount of money or being at a certain level and it just drops off, and maybe some of you can testify to something like that recently. So that there's an economic decline. What happens mentally to people with that, considering, oh no, I'm not making the money I was in the market, or my savings account is going down. And the arrow is, can you trust God when the economy goes bad? You listen to the market reports and you go, that's it. We are in such trouble. They go up and down. It's just historic. How does the devil use it? He uses that to create in us fear, and suddenly now we don't trust God. Faith is gone, and we replace it with, oh my gosh, I've got to move the money. I've got all these things, the economy, and you whine to everybody you can find, if you're in the money matters, about what direction the economy is going. Business failure. Another one, you put something together and you go, man, this should really work. You start your business, you invest your money, you do your research, you go to Shark Tank, they put their money in it, it's on a win. And then you go out and this thing doesn't work. So now you have a business failure. What has just happened? Businesses come and go, they go up and down, but what has just happened? That the enemy can shoot at you a business failure. All of a sudden you start running through, again, God, where were you? I prayed about this. Why did you abandon me? Why did you leave me out here like this? And before long, there's a little break. What's Satan after? Break. He'll take a little one. He'll work on something else next time, bigger one. Just keep working on it. Because now we're not standing firm. We're just allowing the enemy to come in. Yep, you got to question what God's up to. Business failure. Personally strapped. So just our personal finances. We run out. It's looking close. Wow, I don't know how we're going to make it. Got it's more month left after the money. We've got a whole lot of concerns about just paying bills and maybe finding some food. So these are tough times. Do we remember right off the bat, Jesus said, don't worry about those things, like the people who don't know God, from Matthew 6. Do we remember that? Or do we move immediately into panic and worry? And again, God, where were you? Why did you let this happen to me? Who has just struck an arrow, a flaming arrow, that has penetrated and began to divide a person from their God? economic prosperity. Economic prosperity. It's not always going down. Sometimes there's a sudden boost. What happens when an economy takes off and looks really, really good? When it looks really, really good, people get very, very comfortable. They get very, very comfortable and they look for more comforts. The more comforts they have, the more they want to invest in their free time. How much time do they have for God? Less and less. They have more toys, they have more investments, and now their minds are taken, their time is taken, their energy is taken by all the other things because things are looking good. Read the history of Israel in 8th century BC. Read Isaiah, because that's what was going on there. They didn't have boats and stuff. Sea-doos were, well, they were tough to run then. But it was a time of economic prosperity, and it happens here. We do really well, and we forget God. We want to take God out. That's what's happened in America. The better it got, the more we want to remove God from everything. People want to promote removing God from everything. You can't have God spoken. You can't have prayers in Jesus' names. You get 9/11, you all pray in Jesus' name, publicly. We'll put it on TV. All you have to have is prosperity, and suddenly people forget who God is. Who shoots the arrow? Business success. So you start a business. Doesn't fail this time. This one works. All of a sudden, you are the man, the woman. You have broken ceilings of glass and brass, and you are the king. Now you control the money. You have attention. You have success. And we have that same series of things. Don't really need God. Now, I prayed when I was starting because I was a little nervous about this, and I'm a person of faith. But now that we got this thing up and rolling, I just need better accountants, better investments. I just need to figure out how to pocket my money, which takes us to the next one, being personally well off. There's security in having lots of money. So you have enough not only to pay your bills today, but maybe for 20, 30 years down the road. What does that do to you? Well, I'm looking to Jesus every day to take care of me. No, you're not. You're looking to that bank account to take care of you. The God of heaven and earth is no longer part of that. He's been removed because now the security is in something else. Who can fire an arrow of great success and bring security in something other than God that we might listen to, we might lean on? That comes from the enemy because it divides us again, separates us from truth, separates us from the living God who has something else in mind, something else in store for us. And he wants us to know him. He wants us to stand firm in the faith. Satan wants to rock that however he can by providing success or failure, giving you lots of money, lots of security financially, or taking it away. Either way, he wins because we let him. We are to hold up a shield of faith, a shield that puts out those arrows. And if we don't, these things are coming our way. And again, hard and fast, and from every angle. And they're coming right at us. Social fiery arrows of the devil. Social, that's people stuff. Societal, family, all of those kind of things. How does that affect us? Let's start with birth order. If you're the oldest, you're told all of these things, and it often plays out. If If you're the oldest, you tend to want to take charge, you run things, and that's kind of the deal. You get to be the youngest, and you tend to be more the partier person and looking for attention, and then you got the middle child who's jealous of both, and you just got this whole range, and it depends on how many extra layers of that, however many kids you've got. But you can be 65 years old, and if you're the youngest in the family, the others will remind you, because birth order matters. And if you tell me it doesn't, you're a liar. It makes a difference, except for you. He doesn't have any other siblings. So we've got this birth order thing that we start out with. You're born, and you can't go to school, little Johnny, because your older sister is 5 years old, and then she gets to go. You don't get to go. You stay home. You don't want to stay home. You want to go do whatever it is. And it starts with you can do it, you can't do it. Go to Disneyland, you're only this tall. That's a different one. But this birth order makes a difference. A pecking order. So you get to school, and there is a pecking order. Who sits at the cool kid table at lunch? Who gets ostracized? Who sits with the jocks? And who sits with the band nerds? And who sits with, the pecking order? And all of those things influence people's lives. So what can Satan do with simple things like birth order, pecking order? He can just fire an arrow and say, well, how come you're always this one? How come you're always the out one? Or always the in one? If you're always the in one, you're cool. You may be so in, you have no knowledge, no concern, no care. You are blind to the pain of others because you're a cool one. That's all that matters, because you're cool. Birth order, pecking order. It all works that way. All of this works into jobs. It works into everything else in life, so it's not just in the younger years. What if you're on the downside of that and the arrows are fired and you go, well, I'm always put down. I'm always left out. And before long you go, God, why did you do that? I prayed and prayed for good friends. I've prayed for people to accept me. I've prayed. I don't understand. I want to date that girl. I want to date that guy. We come up with all the stuff. God, you failed me. You haven't come through. How much faith? How much is faith rocked? Who just fired an arrow that got to us just in the order in which we were born or the friends we have at school? And he may have, again, won because he's made a way in. And the flames are burning. And he is tearing us apart. And we may carry that all the days of our lives unless we get real with the living God and pull up our shields of faith and stop the arrows of the enemy. Popularity quotient. Now, that could be, again, family. It could be at school. It could be at work. It could be in general. Because people, I listen to this guy, iTunes or radio or somewhere, and I think that music is awesome, and now I want to be a rock star or a hip-hop star or whatever, and we start coming up, I just want to be popular. I want to be a popular writer, author, singer. I want to be a movie star. I want to be popular in whatever. But that popularity thing starts to grow. And then it becomes an obsession. And then it begins to control the way we think and feel. And every time we start to talk about something, it has to come out in terms of popularity. You can hear it in people's voices. They're looking for fame. They're looking for that satisfaction because they think that's the answer. Because they don't have it, they wonder where God is. Where's God in this? What's happened? What if they do get it? Again, they are so busy, they are so famous, they are so big, they don't have time. to listen to God, to spend time with God. That includes popular pastors, preachers, televangelists. They don't have time for God. They're too busy being on the circuit. Popularity is a huge thing. It drives humans, and it penetrates. And if it drives us apart from our God, because, oh, Lord, I can't believe you wouldn't let me be. And God who loves you is going, you don't need that. You need to know me, because that's where life is. That over there is death. Satan wants you to go there. I want you to stay with me where there's life. So popularity quotient. What else we got? Social, economic standing. The whole, or books on socioeconomic levels, and people all across the country, around the globe, are dealing with that. Where do you stand in terms of money? What's your job? Where do you fit? You know, Oklahoma is like not number one of all 50 states. Did you know that? Economically, it's not like, you know, that's the first thing that comes to people's minds is, man, they got a bunch of money out there, and those guys are just, wow. No, but you throw out New York or Chicago or something, people, yeah. United States, it's a behemoth in terms of economic standing, so that's a huge deal within the nations of the world. But then there are pockets of poverty, and then there are people who are hurting into other lands. So obviously God doesn't care for them. People in Nigeria, too bad for them, but great for us, because God loves us. Nigerians, not so much. Nope. What about the people who don't have what you have? What about those people? People normally don't compare with those people who have less than they have. They normally look at the other guys and say, how come they have more than I have? So the whole economic standing thing becomes an issue that we either judge other people by, or we're judging ourselves by other people. And either way, the arrow penetrates and is burning and says, yeah, you got to be dissatisfied. Where's your contentment? Oh, you're not content because you don't have what that guy has. Your contentment has just burned up. And what has Satan achieved? He is again divided, separated you from the faith that you once had in God, because you don't trust him, because you can't trust him, because you don't have what that guy has. I know there's no one in here who's ever been through that, but there's people out there, probably in that church back there. They do that. Geographical location makes a difference. We've been on mission trips in various places, and going on a mission trip, it's been interesting. Where we came from made a difference. So I've taken a group from LA, from Los Angeles, and we did a mission trip to Europe. And people say, so where are you from? You go, LA. LA, Hollywood. Bing! Cool. We go on Guatemala trips. Where'd you guys come from? Oklahoma. Where is that? And if they know Oklahoma, then they go, what part of Oklahoma? And you say, Pryor, and of course they know exactly what you're talking about. There's a difference. Where we're from, and how long does it take you if you're hanging out with someone from up north, if you're down from here and you're proud of your southernness, or the east or the west, or all you have to do is a little bit of talking, and you're putting somebody, it's a pecking order thing, somewhere based on geographical location. And you allow that to penetrate once again and tell you, I can't be here, how come I'm not there, how come I don't have this fancy place in this house here, this land there. And a geographical location, discontentment begins to grow, and the arrow penetrates, and the burning begins, and it begins to make a difference. Generational position. We have all sorts of issues with young and old, and That makes a difference. If you are millennial, the baby boomers now and the millennials are having some kind of battle because of generational positioning. And before that, in the 60s, it was the baby boomers against the folks who came through the Depression and World War II, and it's always been going on. But it exists, but it becomes a problem when the enemy wants to use something like that to divide us from each other and from our God. And he does. So you got to watch. Because if that starts showing up and there's judging and other things that start to enter into that, then you know the arrows have been fired. And they have penetrated. If you buy it. If you don't buy it, somebody's holding up their shield. National background. National background can be a huge cause of conflict from people from the UK or France, people from China. People are mad around the world at China because of the COVID-19 thing that got spread. You go, I'm not sure they really wanted COVID-19, so I'm not sure you can blame all Chinese people. Realize there's over 1 billion of them. It's not all their fault. But we do this national identity thing. We group all these people together. And again, we cause all kinds of problems because of that. And that whole national identity thing can be huge. It can carry over. During World War II, the Japanese Americans were gathered up. Remember that? Put into barracks and fenced off from everybody else. We were fighting them in World War II. Obviously, we needed to do that. We didn't do that with the German Americans. We were also fighting them. And the Italian Americans who we were fighting. Why is that? Some kind of national identity. You could tell the difference by looking at them, and you could tell that they had that heritage. So let's lock them up. We have a problem with that, folks. And as believers, we can do that too. And we can go along with the culture. And Satan wants to do that so that we, again, are divided against people. We don't trust God. If you happen to be a Japanese American thrown into some camp somewhere, you're going, where's God? Because that could be an arrow designed to take them down. And it's just a horrible thing that can happen. But it can also be a point of pride. And as Americans, we can say, well, we're American and patriotic, and we should be. That's responsibility. But there's another side of that gets twisted, and it becomes my country, right or wrong. I'm going to stand with it. That's, if you are familiar with the Nazis, some of them were kind of in that camp, and that created a monster. I don't want to go that way. We have to watch those arrows that are coming so that we know this is the right level, the right thing, at the right time, and we don't let it just penetrate and tear us apart. Race identification is another. Race identification is huge. People can, just by color, it makes a huge difference. Background, culture, language, all those things are playing a part in that, and it's big in our world. The riots that are happening currently have gone global, so there's more protests that are happening out because of this race thing. So the race, instead of just being an expression of God's creativity, becomes something to divide. Who would like to do that? What arrow might be fired at us to get that going? And the burning not only hits us and starts to tear at our flesh, but it burns down cities, it burns the possibility of real relationships, all kinds of things begin to happen. So that one's tough. Gender issues. Now, there's a variety of ways that the gender issue thing has expressed itself. And I would say that the arrows have flown. But the one from the beginning that is still an issue is just male and female. Just male and female. So all this time, women have been excluded for years, for centuries, and around the globe, in many cultures, not all cultures, but many, excluded from owning property, voting, All of that. And so within 100 years, that has happened from here, from this point. We've been around a while. The human race has been here a while. So that's a big deal. What do you do with that? And why can't women doing the same job as men make the same money? It's, of course, all changing and changed. So a lot of that's different. But it's been an issue, and it has kept people apart. It's hurt people. It's the way marriages have been constructed around that, so that men, instead of learning from Ephesians 5 how they ought to treat their women as Jesus treated the church, they go, well, I'm in charge here, and you have to listen to me, and I'll tell you how it's going to be. That's exactly how Jesus didn't do it. But men don't spend time studying the scriptures, and they don't follow Jesus, so it's not there. But what has just happened? What arrow flew? What penetrated some guy's heart? And now that he's treating his wife like that, because now she's in this horrible situation, put down, and all these centuries of women being in this position of being not allowed to have, own or vote or have positions, what did that do in their hearts? Because you still be right with God, even though those things don't exist for you. What arrow strikes and says, I am not content. I do not trust God because I can't vote. So the faith begins to separate. I want to crash a glass ceiling. I haven't been able to do it, therefore it's somebody else's fault. Now the blaming starts. I look at myself as less than. What arrow has just penetrated? What flames are now burning? And Satan has just once again proven that he can tear us apart. The arrows are flying, and they keep on flying. So hold up the shield of faith. Put on every piece of God's armor so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will still be standing firm. Stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth and the body armor of God's righteousness. For shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news so that you will be fully prepared. In addition to all these, hold up the shield of faith to stop the fiery arrows of the devil. Well, there's some arrows, and we don't have time for part one of part one. So, are you wearing God's armor? What battle have you been fighting, flesh and blood or spiritual? What strategies of the devil have you battled? How many times have you tried to stand on your own and not in the armor of God? What kind of spiritual training have you done in the last few weeks? And finally, how will you now live? The arrows are flying. You need the shield of faith. Lord, thank you for providing us the armor we need. Thank you for giving us a heads up about the enemy who is after us. We know that you have won the victory, that your blood gives us that victory. Lord, but we still have the fight to fight here. And we represent you. And you have given us the resources we need to be able to stand firm in the faith. And Lord, let us not quickly forget that the enemy is firing hard and fast, and he is coming at us with all he's got. Give us awareness, wisdom. Lord, remind us to get that shield up. In Jesus' name, amen.